Well, am I live? Am I live? All right, let me check the news feed real quick. I want to just make sure I'm live. Michael J. Long on the Issues podcast live stream. Where does Michael stand on the world's smallest political? Oh, well. All right, let's see. We don't need that. All right. So let's see. All right, so this is your host, Michael J. Long. It's October 20. No, it's October 22nd, 2020 at 9:33 p.m. And thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Real quick, if you guys want to support me and see me grow, and you want to do something to help me, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe link, then click the notification bell and select all. That way you'll be notified when all my videos come out. Hopefully I got the microphone set up right. Alright. So anyways, let me just make sure I get. Click the notification bell, select. Gotcha. Alright. So, getting back on the world's smallest, getting back on the world's smallest political quiz. It's interesting. It's got these questions right here, and let me just take you to it. And this was created by the Advocates for Self-Government, or you can go to the advocates.org, and you can take this quiz. So I'm going to explain the answers that I provide so that those that understand my political views can have a better understanding, and those that don't have a slight clue can start to envelop them. So the first one, government should not censor speech, press, media, or internet. And I agree with that. I'm going to hit agree. And here's why. Censorship is the suppression or prohibition of ideas, images, or other communication that might be considered offensive, dangerous, or harmful. So my opinion on that is I agree with it simply because I don't think it's the government's business to go in and tell people how to communicate with others. And I mean, government should not censor speech, press, media, or internet. It shouldn't be telling you what apps you can listen to and look into and which apps you shouldn't, regardless of whether they come from foreign countries or not, regardless of whether that country is a communist country or not. You have a right to foreign media just as you have a right to domestic media. And the idea that the government's going to come in and tell you, like, okay, this speech is acceptable, this speech isn't. How about we let the community, the individuals in the free market decide who they want to associate with and what their standards are and get the government out of the way of that, not allowing them to censor our free speech. Press, meaning the media. Well, I guess press and media are like two separate, but they kind of go hand in hand. Or internet. I agree with that. So military service should be voluntary. There should be no draft. I agree with that. I mean, even without a war, even if the country was invaded, attacked, or whatever, I have no doubt that people would volunteer to join the military to help defend the country. Um, and Larry Sharp, I'm going to take his idea from this, even though I'm not technically running for office this year, stated that He, well, he stated it like this: if nobody volunteers to join the military when the country's being attacked or invaded to defend the country, then is this really a country worth defending? Or should we at least be prone to being taken over by other countries? Should we at least accept the possibility of surrender if the condition or situation of the public isn't grateful for its own defense? It's not willing to, So he made a good point about that. I mean, because you would think if you had hundreds and thousands of volunteers to join the military or defend their, I mean, I'm pretty sure just about everyone would defend their property. Uh, so yeah, I don't think people should be forced against their will to join the military if they don't want to. And the other problem that this creates is for the people that are in the military. If you don't want to join and you've been drafted into the military, you're not going to listen to any of the officers or anybody for that matter. You're going to do your own little thing. You're not going to follow orders. Your rights were forcefully given up just so you can be drafted into the military. It has some really bad implications. So I agree with that. And then there should be no law. Next one is there should be no laws regarding sex between consenting adults. So when you hit the question mark, it explains to you in the United States, adults are typically those who are age 18 and above. To consent means to give permission for given for something to have happen. Sex laws have historically been applied to activists such as prostitution and pornography. And my take on this is if it's adult pornography or if it's adult prostitution, it's sex work, where or whatever you want to call it, whereby individuals are making these decisions, consenting adults are making these decisions for themselves, then regardless of whether you have money involved or not, the government really shouldn't be involved in that matter. So I agree with that. I mean, repeal laws prohibiting adult possession use of drugs, and I agree with that, and here's why. I'm just gonna. This is the explanation it gives. The federal and state laws restrict or ban the consumption of, distribution, and manufacture of many drugs, including tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana, as well as hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, or methamphetamine, to name a few. So, in essence, I'm kind of against all that. I mean, the least amount of regulations you can have on the, I first of all think that we should legalize marijuana and then decriminalize all the other drugs and or legalize it if we have enough studies like and or legalize it, decriminalize all the other drugs, legalize marijuana, reduce the drinking age to 18, just let people decide for themselves basically what they choose to put in their own bodies, how they choose to raise their children, and etc. As long as they don't impose danger, force, or fraud to others. I don't see where people using or selling or dealing drugs is necessarily a threat. And I feel like 90% of our drug issues is prohibition related. So I agree with that. I think the federal government should, take a step back from having to enforce prohibition, which never works. So then the next one is government should not target, detain, and deport undocumented immigrants. So this one, I agree, and here's why. Because, well, it explains here in the U.S., adults are typically those who are age 18 and above. To consent means to give permission for something to happen. So, oh wait, that's for consenting adults. All right. So government should not target, detain, and deport undocumented immigrants. Personally, immigration and customs immigration enforcement enters workplace to detain and deport workers with undocumented without workers with documentation issues. The alternative would be to streamline the process for getting documentation. So see, I agree with you. Like, you know, we should make it as easy as possible for people to come here legally and then give them a pathway to legal residency once they're already in the country to get all the undocumented immigrants that have not committed any violent acts of aggression or imposed danger, force, or fraud to others, and could give them a pathway to legal residency and make it easy as possible for them to obtain the citizenship, provided they take the exams like everyone else. And so, yeah, I basically support an open border policy where we, by not restrict the entry of workers, goods, and services, immigrants, etc. Like, you know, I kind of agree. The only undocumented immigrants that should be deported are those that have committed violence and imposed danger, force, or fraud to others. Committed like a real violent offense and they've been convicted. Yeah, you know. But other than that, you give people permission. Even if they go around that, you can still like have them fill out the paperwork, etc., and go through the process of legalizing. I mean, you know. Uh, so there's ways to handle it without having to be as draconian as we've got. So this one, taxpayers should not be responsible to student loan debt. I agree. And what does this say? Student loan debt is incurred when a person takes out a loan to create. Yeah, I mean, they should be personally responsible for it. If they want to go to college, then they should be the ones to be personally responsible to, pay the student debt if they incur any, etc. And ultimately, I don't think the government should be involved in telling people, like, okay, you need to go to college, and all that. I think that, I mean, government seems to push people who aren't ready to go into college, and then, bad things happen, and you end up with that. Uh, Government should not be responsible for providing health care. This one, I feel like it should be a maybe, and it's because like it says here, a free market healthcare system would eliminate government-supported programs like Medicare and Medicaid, replaying, relying on private solutions like market and innovation and charities. My thing is, you got like millions of people who are disabled, who have autism or mobility disabilities or mental health issues, cognitive disabilities, neurological disabilities, etc. Autism being one of the main neurological, social, and developmental disabilities going. And a lot of people with autism and even all these other types of disabilities are dependent on Social Security and having Medicaid to pay for their medical expenses along with Medicare. So the way I would deal with it, I wouldn't just eliminate those programs. And I don't think that all-out approach should be applied. So I'm going to put maybe. Because what we could do is we could actually um, allow the free market to compete with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIPS, and have private solutions and innovation and private charities, the market in general, competing with benefits that need them. We can also, we can also, we can also like finance it with the fair tax, get rid of the income tax, right? When the senior citizens or whoever, the oldest generation we got now, that we've made a promise to, and I don't believe in revoking contracts, right? We made a promise to senior citizens, oh yes, well, you'll get your money back that you paid into Social Security. So we should at least, give them back the money we promised we would give them. And when they die out, we should then we could transition then Social Security, the funding for Social Security by private contributions. So now, if you want those same government benefits, going, it would be funded through private contributions. So people would voluntarily give their money to keep those programs going for to the government, and then the government would distribute that money um, to the people who need it. That, like I said, like the disabled, etc. Then, as the demand diminishes, then we can determine whether we want to privatize uh, Social Security and all that. Other than that, I don't believe that government should be providing health. And I don't believe in having a universal single payer health care and all this socialism and garbage and whatever, right? But for the programs we already have, for the people who are already dependent on it, like, let's have a transition, right? And this one here, let people control their own retirement, privatize Social Security. Again, it's a maybe. And replace government welfare with private charities. I think, like I said, we should have allowed for private charities, but I think as far as gutting or getting rid of welfare benefits, like food stamps, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, CHIPS, I think that should be. I think it would be more realistic that we create the environment where the dependence is dramatically reduced, that it's no longer an issue, and then maybe we can privatize the so-called government welfare or get rid of it altogether. But there has to be a transition, especially among those who are disabled or who were born with disabilities like autism. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not in favor of getting rid of it overnight, basically, and I'm not in favor of just phasing it out until we can come up with a transition plan. And yeah, I mean, like I said, like, I've given my ideas for that. I think that's a maybe. Other than that, I agree with this one. Cut taxes and government spending by up to 50%. Actually, the more the better, right? So if it's 65% or more, the better. So yeah, I agree with that. And let's see, I'm gonna put that on libertarian because it's a bonus question here. All right, let's calculate my results. So it says here on personal issues, I score 100. And when Larry Sharp took this test, he scored like 90 on personal issues and like 80 on economic issues. So I scored 100 on personal issues and then 70 on economic issues. So yeah, I'm within range of being a libertarian. I am a libertarian. I openly admit that. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of, like, I have some fundamental differences, but other than that, I'm proud to be a libertarian. I'm glad I'm a libertarian. There's no place like home. I wonder who said that. Dorothy? Yeah. No place like home. So something to think about. I mean, if you got anybody that might be libertarian, you can give them the quiz and see what they scored at.